On today's show, Matt Roy is edging closer to his return.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, there are some blue liners on this team that are edging closer and closer to the return. All things considered, I think the Capitals defense, the blue line, has stood tall with 2 big names out of the lineup. I'm, of course, talking about Roy and Chychrun, and one of those players is edging closer to his return. Could he be in versus the Predators? I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about Alex Ovechkin, and we know that he is edging closer and closer to Wayne Gretzky. But who's looking in the rearview mirror behind Alex Ovechkin? Could Auston Matthews at some point catch Ovechkin? We'll talk about that. And then in the final segment, we'll talk about the Screaming Eagle jersey makes its return. But just to get it going here, talking about the Capitals blue line and all that it's faced this year. 2 big acquisitions made in the offseason. You take a look at Chychrun, you take a look at Roy. Roy in particular was one of those players that was brought to this team, that stay-at-home defenseman, a shutdown defenseman, that was going to alleviate a lot of the pressure off John Carlson. So John Carlson doesn't have to play 25 to 30 minutes a night. And he was injured in the first game, kind of like worst case scenario, if you will. And then Jakob Chychrun, the other big piece on the blue line, well, he got injured as well. Well, the Capitals got some good news today, as one of those players very well might be in the lineup versus the Preds. The Capitals took a day off to recharge after a busy weekend, as was needed, and they were back on the ice, on practice, on Tuesday, and there was some interesting storylines and a little bit of a hint about ultimately who might be in versus the Pred. Matt Roy, who's been out for 10 games because of a lower body injury from the season opener, was back on the ice. That is some great news for the Capitals and their fans, as I think this team and their blue line is going to be that much better. Now, again, this team has played well. The defense, the blue line, has played well in their absence, but I think this team is going to be markedly better with Roy in the lineup and at some point Chychrun as well. He was wearing a contact jersey and skated alongside Rasmus Sandin on the second defensive pairing. So it definitely does appear, though it is trending in the right direction, and that's a great sign. And what did Spencer Carberry say about it? Well, he didn't come out and say definitively that, yes, he will be in there. What he said, quote, was definitely a possibility, close quote, to play in Wednesday's game against the Nashville Predators. So quite some great news from Capitals practice today, that things are trending in the right direction, that some of these injured players that I think the Capitals have sorely missed will be making the return. He said, quote, all things are trending towards potentially playing tomorrow, unquote. So some great news there. If Roy does play, it'll only be his second game with the Caps since signing that huge 6-year deal over the summer. And you talk about worst case scenario, joining a team and getting injured in the very first game. That is tough, but it wasn't all great news on the injury front. Jakob Chychrun is still sidelined after suffering that upper body injury last Tuesday's game against the Rangers. So it's a tough break there. Ultimately, we hope that he is going to make his return sooner than later. He did practice in some skills work before practice, but didn't join the team for skating exercises, which means he's still a ways out and recovering. And it's interesting, these injuries are always a bit ambiguous. They don't say how much time they're going to miss. I don't think they want to tip their hand. And ultimately, I think that sometimes they just don't know. But it'll be a big thing just to get Roy back, and just to bring in, put the aces in their places, if you will. I think that Dylan McIlrath has done a good job. I think that Alexeyev has done a pretty good job. But to get these big name players back will be huge. Alexeyev was at practice skating alongside TVR on the third defensive pairing. So it does appear that Dylan McIlrath, to little to no surprise to anyone, is going to be that odd man out. All things considered, he'll still be on the active roster. And when the Capitals need some physicality, they can always crack open a can of McIlrath, and he's going to bring the physicality. He was skating today with Vinny Iorio as an extra. So the Capitals do have some great depth pieces. They have Dylan McIlrath. They have Vincent Iorio. Alexeyev is in the lineup. And, the tough break for Alexeyev, just talking about the blue line in general here, is that he has had to be so patient. We think the summer before, when he thought it was going to be his season, and then the Capitals got Joel Edmondson, so that it's good to see him finally get his opportunity and to see his game improve. I think that he has played well, but I think that is only going to grow by leaps and bounds with the more reps he gets. But all things considered, Matt Roy making his return, all arrows are pointing in that direction. Wednesday evening versus the Preds. This is going to be huge, and they need to take advantage of any opportunity to play well against a team that is not playing very well. They need to do it against teams that are playing well too, but definitely make an opportunity and play the best against a team that is struggling, shall we say. So good news from Capitals practice today, as it definitely does appear as though that Matt Roy will be in the lineup, and hopefully he's ready to bring it. The one thing I hope for is that the Capitals don't fall into what they call a trap game. Well, we're playing the Nashville Predators. They're not very good. We can, we can mail it in with these guys. I don't think that's ever a conscious thought, but I think that subconsciously, when you prepare for a team, a really great team like the Rangers or, the Stars or whoever's playing good at the moment, I think that subconsciously you ramp up in your mind, like, I need to bring my A game because I'm playing against a really good team. Subsequently, I think subconsciously, when you're not playing a great team, that sometimes you take your foot off the gas a little bit. The Capitals need to have their foot squarely on the gas pedal, and they'll be in a much better position if, in fact, Roy is in the lineup. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we'll talk about Alex Ovechkin as he edges closer and closer to catching the great one, Wayne Gretzky. But who is he looking at in the rearview mirror? Yes, Alex Ovechkin himself. I'll discuss straight ahead. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineups live. Sign up today and you'll get started with $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 bet. That's use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So next, let's talk about Alex Ovechkin as he chases down the great one, Wayne Gretzky, and talking about how the offense in the NHL in general has changed over, let's say, the last 10 years or so, that there is more lethality, that there is better goal scorers, I'm going to say today, than there was years ago. Now, I could get some grief for that, but I think that some of the best goal scorers out there are in our present time. There were some great goal scorers years ago, but I think some of the cream of the crop is definitely playing in our time. And, about 10 years ago, there was a pretty noticeable decline in NHL offenses. Many analysts really thought Alex Ovechkin, for example, would start to follow that typical aging player trajectory. They were saying no one would ever come close to breaking the all-time goals record. And one of the things I've talked about in the show for the longest time is I don't think that Alex Ovechkin ever set out to catch Gretzky. I just think that he played so well. Of course, that's what happened. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think that he's like, yes, I'm in the NHL and I'm going to catch that Gretzky guy. Not the case, but he is doing that and trying and eclipsing the unbreakable record. It's interesting, though, how this perspective mirrors what people believed about other records that seemed unbreakable. Like, remember when Connor McDavid surpassed Wayne Gretzky's assist record in a single postseason by 3 last spring? These young players are definitely up to the task of knocking down milestones that are in their way and evolving milestones. Now, as the league keeps evolving, we're actually seeing some long-standing milestones being eclipsed that we once thought were unreachable, like Ovi catching Gretzky. It makes you wonder which other NHL records are at risk of being broken. And you take a look at Ovechkin in particular. Currently, Ovechkin is just 35 goals shy of the all-time goals record. He's got 71 games left this season and another 82 on his contract track through the 25-26 season. If he stays healthy, reaching that milestone seems pretty doable. And it's one of the things you never want to doubt the big man. You never want to doubt Alex Ovechkin. As we know, last season, he got off to his slowest start in the goal scoring department in his entire career. People were saying he's washed. Me, even the host of this show, I questioned if he has what it takes or if he is in fact in the back nine of his career. And what happened? The Capitals went to the All-Star break. The NHL went to the All-Star break. He went to Dubai, rode around on that camel, came back a changed man, ended the season with 31 goals. Before the All-Star break, he was only projected to get 16 goals. So he is a guy that is used to knocking down milestones one after the other. But if there is one other player that could potentially eclipse Alex Ovechkin, and I know that it's kind of a long shot, and I've talked about this on this show before, is that potentially it could be Auston Matthews. But it's not just about Ovi. Look at Auston Matthews from the Maple Leafs. He's had an impressive start with 373 goals in 575 games. That averages out to 0.65 goals per game. Now, this is a Maple Leafs team this year that is not one of the better teams out there or a really good Toronto Maple Leafs team. But I think that Auston Matthews in particular is at least one player that could potentially at some point catch Ovechkin. Now, comparatively, Ovechkin scored 347 goals over the same number of games, averaging 0.60 goals per game. Now, talking about durability and sustained success, that's the big thing. With Auston Matthews, it's more in a vacuum where we have more footage and more statistics on Alex Ovechkin. It's worth noting that Ovechkin has shown amazing durability, leading the league in goals 4 times after turning 30. On the flip side, though, Matthews' scoring rate indicates he has a strong potential for sustained scoring as well. So it's one of the things that when Alex Ovechkin catches and passes Wayne Gretzky, which it seems like it very well could be this year, we really want him to hammer down and just keep driving that as far as he possibly can, so players like Auston Matthews won't catch him. But what are the projections for Mr. Matthews? He reached that 575 game mark at 27 years old, which is the same age Ovechkin was at that stage in his career. But if Matthews stays on track, that's the big thing. He might even exceed 800 career goals in the next 10 or 11 years, all depending, of course, on his health and how he performs moving forward. Health, that's the big thing. Alex Ovechkin being 39, it's definitely not going to get any easier for him, but that has definitely not been an obstacle this year, at least so far. And talking about the Capitals and what they have to do, and I think the Capitals playing very well is going to go hand in hand with Alex Ovechkin scoring goals and off to a great start to the season. And it's interesting, towards the beginning of the season, Locked On had asked us, what are some of your goals for the Capitals and what do you see with Alex Ovechkin? And I projected him to hit 35 goals just based on a lot of stats and seeing a bit of a decline. But then what does he do? What does Alex Ovechkin do? He goes ahead and proves everyone wrong yet again. Now, to be fair, it is still very, very early in the season, and anything can happen, and very well might. That as long as Alex Ovechkin stays healthy, as long as his line mates like Dylan Strome and Alexeyev continue to be key contributors, then I think the sky's the limit. Now, there is the inevitability ebbs. There's the inevitable flows of the season. I'm talking about injuries. I'm talking about Ovechkin slowing down at some point this season, which I think is inevitable. But also to pick up. I'm not going to say that he's going to peak and then just bottom out. It is just going to be a wave pattern, if you will. That is kind of the projection. Now, he could go ahead and prove me wrong, and it could just be an arrow straight up to the sky. Hey, I'm loving it if that's the case. But you kind of just have to look at the past and know that that is going to predict a little bit about the future. As far as Alex Ovechkin is concerned, I think he has what it takes. I think that Spencer Carberry has the perfect lines out there right now, except for the third line, that it seems to be a match made in heaven. Now, you take a look at Strome, who has great chemistry with Ovi, kind of in a similar way, but not exactly, that Nick Backstrom had, and Alexeyev playing on that top line. I definitely did not have that in my opening night lineup, but has been killer. So it has been huge. Dan, if they ever need to mix and match, I do expect at some point this season, if things do taper back, if they slow a bit, that we will get a look at Pierre-Luc Dubois on that top line. But that will be interesting to see, that is for sure. But as far as Alex Ovechkin is concerned, I think he just needs to keep doing what he does really well, and that is to score goals. And, even though people criticize him and say, hey, man, he's getting a lot of empty netters, who cares? I mean, he's getting some legitimate goals. He's getting some that are bouncing off equipment. A goal is a goal, and that's just how it goes at the end of the day. But all things considered, there is a lot to be excited about, and let's hope he can keep going. The Caps take on the Predators next tomorrow night, Wednesday evening. Let's hope he can get another goal or two, or maybe three. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we'll talk about the Capitals jerseys. The Screaming Eagle jersey will make its return. I'll discuss straight ahead. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And there is a lot of football that is played on any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday. And some of those games you're more into, and some of them you're not. But if you open up that FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game, all of a sudden those games got that much more exciting. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day, so it's the little things during the hockey season, and it's a bit of a bigger thing to one player in particular, but the Capitals will see the return of the Screaming Eagle jersey. Now, if you are an everydayer of the show, if you watch and listen to this show on the regular, I always have talked about if that jersey is ever available again, I'm going to go out and get it. Have I got it yet? I have not. Well, just because a lot like the rest of you, I got a wife, I got kids, I got a car payment, I got all this, and I don't got 100 and what is it, $50 or however much these jerseys are, but they are a pretty nice looking jersey. And well, if I play my cards right, maybe I'll get one for Christmas from my wife. Hint, hint. But now, they are a nice looking jersey. And what are some of the things that we know about the Capitals jersey right now? The red one in particular, the Rock the Red era one, if you will, is that it is ranked as one of the worst, in some cases, the worst jersey in the entire NHL. Now, you got to think to a certain extent that Ted Leonsis and Chris Patrick and all the brain trust and whoever's in charge of those kind of decisions, they have to have someone working on the next Caps jersey. I like the Caps red jersey. I mean, I have one over there, and I have the one with the the red one with the white stars on the front of it. Nice looking jerseys. But the black one, that new Screaming Eagle jersey, which is kind of a mix, it's modern and old, is really a sharp-looking jersey. And Alex Ovechkin, well, he in particular has a fondness for that jersey as well. So the Caps will make their black Screaming Eagle jersey debut again this season on Wednesday night, marking a much-anticipated return after nearly 2 years. And it's a good looking jersey, all things considered. And, you take a look at some of the jerseys around the league. I'm talking about the Anaheim Ducks. That is a really nice looking jersey. Not a really great hockey team right now, but a really nice looking jersey, all things considered. And there are some jerseys out there in the league that are nicer looking that come to mind, the Golden Knights, the Kings. And then there's some jerseys that I think look a little drab or a little boring. The Red Wings, you really got to do something with that kind of just boring look that you got going on there. But those are just off the top of my head here. So is there the possibility that at some point the Capitals could integrate and make that black Screaming Eagle jersey part of the regular rotation, or could it at some point replace the red jersey? I have heard rumblings about that as well, but it's not as easy as it appears or as it sounds, is it has to get NHL approval. But Ovechkin in particular is very excited. He is especially excited about the jersey's return and has been vocal about his enthusiasm, highlighting its significance for the team. Ovechkin, the reigning first star of the week, is cautiously optimistic about maintaining his performance level against the Predators and how much luck that will bring him with that jersey. I think that it is important to have realistic expectations that, just because you've had luck wearing that jersey in the past, you might not have luck again, but you might. And he has had a great season while wearing that. Last season, while wearing the reversed 2.0 jersey, Ovechkin scored 11 goals in just 7 games, including a memorable hat trick. This performance helped him surpass Gordie Howe in the all-time goals list and tie the record for the most 30-goal seasons in NHL history with 17. Now, it is interesting, it's luck and all those kind of things and kismet and all of those sorts of things about luck and, how certain players have better luck against certain teams, even though the lineups change and there's different coaches, or how some players play better in certain venues or arenas. What's behind that? It really doesn't make sense. But sometimes things don't make sense. And like Alex Ovechkin having great production while wearing that reversed retro 2.0 jersey doesn't make sense. It is what it is, as they say. And if it brings him any sort of luck, I like it. Ovechkin expressed his hope for the Capitals will keep the alternate jerseys beyond this year, saying, quote, "I hope they're going to think about it and put it back next year," unquote. The Screaming Eagle jersey, of course, holds significance for Ovechkin as he wore the black Capitol Dome jersey in his first NHL game. So there is a history. There is a reason behind it. I think it looks good, so I have vested interest that I think it looks good. But for Alex Ovechkin, I think it rings especially true with that Capitol Dome jersey, the one that he wore in his first NHL game, and also the reverse retro 2.0 and all the luck that has brought him along the way as well. So in any event, it's going to be a nice new look. At the end of the day, of course, I'm more concerned about the end result. And if the Capitals win the game, I'm all about wins, but if they can go out there looking fashionable and fresh, then I like that. That's a good look for the Capitals. And hey, if they ask for me and they vote and they say, hey, Dan, we want to replace the red jerseys. Do you think that the 2.0 jersey would be a good replacement? Of course, I would sign off on such a thing. I don't have that kind of power, but if I did, I definitely would do that. And let's hope that it brings Alex Ovechkin luck. Let's hope it brings the Capitals luck. And as far as Alex Ovechkin, if it means he can knock down a couple more goals, well, then there's really some truth to all this lucky reverse retro 2.0 jersey, and also just chipping away so he can get closer and closer to catching Gretzky. All right, I want to thank you once again for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals and making it your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.